Welcome to Certified Information Security's NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor Training. I'm Alan Keel, and I will be leading you through this introduction to auditing cybersecurity according to the NIST CSF 2.0 framework. This course is presented in 5 course modules. Following this introduction, we'll go into Module 2, where we will assess the organization's conformance to NIST recommendations for cybersecurity program desired outcomes and corresponding implementation task recommendations. We'll then look to see how those task recommendations are properly allocated through shared roles and responsibilities throughout the organization. Following that, we'll see how the organization has properly used the core recommendations to actually assess and manage cybersecurity risk. And then finally, we will look to assess how the NIST CSF recommendations for cybersecurity risk management are communicated and integrated into the organization's overall approach to enterprise risk management. As your course facilitator, I am certified as a NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0 Lead Implementer and Lead Auditor, as well as certified as CISSP 27001 Lead Auditor, CCSK, CISA, CISM, C-Risk, and also in ISO 31000 Risk Management with C-Risk certification. These are the most relevant to the course I'm teaching today. Before I continue with covering the content of the course, let's talk about the NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor credential itself. The Certified NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor certification accredits your ability to assess and audit the formal structure, governance, and policy of a robust cybersecurity program conforming to NIST CSF 2.0. Now understand that the NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor credential is a stacking credential requiring current CSF 2.0 Lead Implementer certification as a prerequisite for Lead Auditor certification eligibility, meaning you need to be certified in the actual implementation and content of NIST CSF prior to then being certified as capable of also auditing according to that same framework. Upon completion of this training and certification program, you'll be equipped with knowledge and skills required to audit conformance of a cybersecurity program's conformance to NIST CSF 2.0 recommended structure, management, and practices. You'll expand your cybersecurity competency as well as potentially increasing your credibility through gaining international recognition. And of course, you'll improve your resume and CV to potentially help increase your earning potential as well. So with this stacking credential, the process begins with, of course, completing your NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Implementer training and certification. You'll then move on to your NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor training. You'll take your NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor exam number CSF 102. And upon completion of these requirements, as well as the prerequisite experience requirement of 2 years of cybersecurity auditing or related experience, you'll then be eligible for certification as a CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor.
There are only 2 types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be, and even they are converging into one category, and that is companies that have been hacked and will be hacked again.
So why do we need professional cybersecurity assessments? Cybersecurity assessment and auditing can help organizations identify and mitigate security risks. Without adequate security measures, organizations risk losing sensitive data as well as customer trust. Cybersecurity threats are constantly evolving, and regular assessments and audits can help organizations stay ahead. Now, one of the things we're concerned about are potential data breaches. So data breaches can have serious consequences for organizations, including financial losses as well as damage to the organization's reputation. Assessing cybersecurity then can help organizations identify potential vulnerabilities that have been potentially overlooked that could be exploited by attackers. Moreover, auditing can help ensure that security measures are being implemented effectively and identify other areas for improvement. Another concern that we can address with auditing is auditing for regulatory compliance. Regulatory compliance is increasingly important with stricter regulations and heavier penalties for non-compliance. So, cybersecurity assessments and audits can help organizations ensure compliance with those regulations. And compliance with regulations can also help protect organizations from downstream legal and financial liabilities. With the organization's reliance upon automation and technology throughout the organization, not just in the server room, but throughout the organization with any technology-enabled or internet-connected device, the organization is vulnerable to the third parties who actually provide that software and those internet-connected devices. So third-party risks are a growing concern for organizations, with many data breaches resulting from third-party vulnerabilities. Assessing cybersecurity can help organizations identify and manage third-party risks. And auditing can help ensure that third-party vendors are meeting the organization's cybersecurity requirements. And of course, cybersecurity incidents are potentially disruptive to the operations. Cybersecurity incidents can disrupt business operations and lead to significant downtime and financial loss. Assessing cybersecurity can help organizations identify and mitigate risk to business continuity. And of course, that then helps us to ensure that the business continuity plans are properly in place and effective. Cybersecurity incidents can also damage an organization's brand reputation and can even erode customer trust. Assessing cybersecurity can help organizations identify and mitigate those risks to brand reputation. Auditing can help ensure that security incidents are being managed effectively and transparently. Our customers, suppliers, regulators, and other stakeholders are also concerned about third-party risk. This means that cybersecurity can be a competitive advantage for organizations. Assessing cybersecurity can help organizations identify and address security gaps, enhancing their security posture. Auditing can help demonstrate to customers and partners that the organization takes security seriously and can actually document and prove their own cybersecurity capability. And speaking of regulatory requirements, industry standards for cybersecurity are evolving and becoming more rigorous every day. Assessing cybersecurity can help organizations keep up with industry standards and best practices. And auditing can help demonstrate compliance with industry standards and best practices as well. Employee awareness is a critical component of a strong cybersecurity posture. Assessing cybersecurity can likewise help identify gaps in employee awareness and provide opportunities for training. Auditing can help ensure that employees are following security policies and procedures. And finally, let's not forget about cost savings. Cybersecurity incidents can be costly for organizations, with expenses including incident response, legal fees, and lost productivity. In other words, the cost of doing it right with good cybersecurity is far less than the cost of doing it wrong without cybersecurity. So assessing cybersecurity can help better identify and mitigate those risks and potentially save the organizations a great deal of money in the long run. Auditing helps to ensure that security measures are being implemented efficiently and effectively. So now we have an idea how mission critical auditing and assessing cybersecurity is. So let's go into the content of how we can assess the organization's cybersecurity program and posture against the recommendations for cybersecurity presented in NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. So auditing a cybersecurity program against NIST CSF 2.0 recommendations begins with auditing the core. The core are the desired cybersecurity capabilities and corresponding recommended implementation examples. We'll then audit the roles and responsibilities that have been allocated throughout the organization to execute the implementation recommendations of the core. We'll then move on to auditing the organization's application of its cybersecurity program to properly manage cybersecurity risk throughout the organization. And of course, this means we need to also assess how auditing of cybersecurity risk relates to auditing of integration of cybersecurity risk management in the organization's overall enterprise risk management approach. So, auditing conformance to the framework core, you may remember from your NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Implementer training that the core is a set of desired cybersecurity domains called functions, organized into topical categories and aligned to prescriptive control recommendations that NIST calls informative references. So we have 6 functions that are applicable to cybersecurity risk management, but also to risk management at large. And when considered together, these functions provide a high-level strategic view of the life cycle of an organization's management of cybersecurity risks. We then have 22 categories of cybersecurity risk management that are spread across these 6 functions. And within those categories, we have our subcategories, which are actually desired cybersecurity outcomes or capabilities that are based on cybersecurity activities. Now then, in NIST CSF 1.1, we had to go on to the external informative references to get our task and procedures of what needed to be performed in order to fulfill those subcategory desired outcomes. Well, we can still do that, but also NIST CSF 2.0 now provides recommended implementation tasks to use to have a bare minimum of cybersecurity capability. So we'll look at auditing against those recommended implementation tasks. So remember, the 6 functions have 22 subject matter categories covering the breadth of cybersecurity objectives for an organization. Categories cover topics across cyber, physical, personnel, but always with a focus on business outcomes. So this means that auditing the organization's cybersecurity program for conformance to NIST CSF 2.0 recommendations means essentially starting with ensuring that the recommended tasks are being properly performed. So again, let's take a look at this to review what we'll be looking at. We know that the functions describe the main projects of what needs to get done. And then within that, we have sub-projects of more granular detail of what needs to get done. But finally, we have now recommended practices for doing what needs to get done, and that is what we need to audit. So we're looking to go through the organization and see if the 367 recommended implementation tasks are being performed and being completed. But actually, one of the very first things we need to do is see if those 367 tasks were even properly assigned and allocated through proper roles and responsibilities allocation throughout the organization. Because after all, tasks are performed by people. So tasks must be assigned to people so that they can be performed. However, there are different aspects of the task. For example, it could be that one person is ultimately accountable for the successful achievement of the task, but isn't the person who actually rolls up their sleeves to do the task. That person might be the person responsible for performing the task. So a task can be assigned to multiple people to collaborate in completing a task together and then signed off on by the person or people who are accountable for ensuring that that task was successfully done. Okay, well then we look to who may consult as the task is fulfilled, even though they're not responsible nor accountable for the task itself. And finally, we have others that need to be informed of the task completion and its progress. So what I've just described then is every task has a certain party who may be accountable, who may also be the same person who does the task. They would also then be responsible. And then we have others that, well, are consulted, informed, or potentially both. So as many of you recognized, I just described applying the RACI model of roles and responsibilities allocation to the 367 tasks that are recommended for implementation of the NIST CSF 2.0 desired outcomes. So as we audit for roles and responsibilities, as we audit for successful implementation task completion, we're not just looking to see if it was done. Was it done properly by the right people in the different ways that it needs to be done? In other words, we need to be able to understand the actual responsibilities, which implies anyone who must complete the task or make a decision. In other words, anyone responsible for getting something done is assigned an R in the RACI matrix, and we would be looking to see if that person or people were getting their part of this recommended implementation task properly completed. So remember that using this roles and responsibilities matrix, several people might be responsible for various tasks and decisions, and they could be defined and assigned in the form of a spreadsheet or chart. We also have the people who are accountable. We need to audit to determine whether or not accountability and oversight is actually being properly allocated and performed. The people who are deemed accountable in the RACI matrix include individuals who must sign off or approve tasks, decisions, and objectives. And we need to remember that only one person can be held accountable for a task and deliverable. This is very important to remember when we correctly use a RACI matrix. You may remember from your lead implementer training that we also have certain individuals who are assigned the consulted role. This includes subject matter experts or whose opinion is considered for input before the work is signed off. These active participants are also kept in the loop so they can provide timely input. And then we have informed. These are the people who might be required to receive updates on the project or progress of executable task, but they don't actually contribute to the task completion itself. And as I explained earlier, this is normally represented in a spreadsheet, such as the one you're viewing here. This is the spreadsheet that I actually authored and created that I provide in class as a working tool for us to be able to not only discuss, but then have a resource for, well, assessing and auditing the roles, responsibilities, assignments as we go through auditing how the tasks are performed by whom in the NIST CSF 2.0 audit of the core. Now, the majority of the audit work so far has really been auditing the actual tasks and capabilities of the organization as represented in the core functions. Well, now we need to look at, again, how those tasks, how those activities are actually being effectively utilized to actually manage risk within the organization. Now, it turns out that there are different levels of maturity as to how well an organization actually practices core capabilities to effectively manage risk. So, tiers reflect an organization's practices for assessing the maturity of cybersecurity risk governance, risk management, and third-party risk at progressively rigorous levels. So we look at partial, risk-informed, repeatable, and adaptive. And just when you think that you have the hard part done, you need to recognize that the ability to manage cybersecurity risk is really only as effective as it is actually integrated into the organization enterprise-wide through its enterprise risk management capability and function. So as part of our NIST CSF 2.0 audit, we need to determine how well is this being integrated into the overall enterprise risk management. So again, since enterprise risk management covers all aspects of risk in an organization, NIST CSF points out that ICT risk management should be considered as a subcomponent of overall enterprise risk management. And within overall enterprise risk management, CSF 2.0 helps ensure that leaders continually have information they need for making informed business and agency decisions as they are affected by cybersecurity risk. So again, if cybersecurity risk is measured and assessed as a subscope of the organization's overall enterprise risk management, that means that this enterprise-wide integration of risk management is determined in the ERM program. So auditing cybersecurity risk communication and integration then begins with auditing the organization's ERM framework at a high level. So here we are over 20 minutes later, and we finally finished the introduction to the NIST CSF 2.0 Lead Auditor training program. Our next stop is to learn how we can audit the 367 recommended implementation tasks in the NIST CSF core. I'm Alan Keel. Thanks for joining me.